Hi, and welcome to the Sales Growth Showcase, where we share insights from some of today's top sales leaders so that you can make more money and be better connected to your customers. I am thrilled to be joined today by Carole Mahoney. Carole, why don't you briefly tell us a little bit about yourself and how you impact others?
So I am the founder of Unbound Growth, and I work one-on-one with business owners and sellers and managers and helping them to grow their careers and their personal incomes or to get more clients. And I also work with executives of technology companies, helping them to predictably hire, develop, and scale their sales teams so that they can meet their numbers and grow their organizations. I really love it when people come to me and say, you know what, I never would have thought that this was possible if not for. That's like Christmas for me every day.
That's fantastic. So obviously being connected to sales leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, you have a good sense of what's going on in the state of sales today. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's start you specifically or some of the customers that you're working with. What are you focusing on nowadays to try to grow your sales?
You know, one of the things that I'm working on the most with customers and clients these days, especially sales executives and managers and entrepreneurs, is how do we hire the right talent? There's a hiring war that's going on right now, and executives are really struggling with how do we keep our top talent and how do we attract more of those top talent players here so we can create these world-class sales teams. And it is a struggle, but I also am talking and working with individual sellers who are either being told that they're going to be forced to go back into the office and they're resistant to that. And they're looking at, am I in the right place? Should I, and is there something else that's better for me out there? And I think that's the hardest challenge in sales right now is the hiring. How do we hire the right people? But then also as individual sellers, it's trying to connect with your buyers they're working from home. They're not always necessarily in the office. The way that they buy has changed and shifted even more dramatically in the last 18 months than it has in the past couple of years. So it's really, how do I connect with those buyers in a real and authentic way when I can't be face to face with them? So those are a lot of the things that we're working on today.
That's great. And that leads directly to talking in a bit more detail about some of that challenge. So let's focus on the challenge you brought up around the fact that you may not be face to face with your customers, whether that's because you're in a different part of the country or because you're still observing some type of lockdown and may not be going back to face meetings just yet. When you talk to sales executives, how are you trying to help them overcome that gap of not being able to be in the same room, or what they're teaching their sales teams about how to make those real connections with buyers, even though you're not in the same room?
Yeah. It comes down to really three major steps. First is really doing your due diligence, your research, and understanding the buyer, their world, their challenges. And this isn't just people in this company. It's all levels of an organization. What the CEO and executives are focused on and care about is not the same thing as managers, is not the same thing as business users or end users in an organization. And so sellers need to be able to be prepared to have those conversations at each level of the organization and be able to bring in some consensus to help them figure out the problems that they're solving. Because if they could figure it out for themselves, they would have done so already. So sellers need to be able to do that, understanding that due diligence and research, to be able to have relevant conversations with buyers around problems that they're facing on a one-to-one individual basis and as an organization. And the second thing that we're really working on is, I call it proactive coaching. It starts with getting the right people in the right roles, square peg, round hole. You can do all kinds of coaching and development, but it's going to take you a long time to get that person comfortable having the kind of conversation that they need to have with buyers today, that ask them questions that make them, I hadn't thought of it that way, or, I don't really know the answer to that, because sometimes those are the root causes of some of the problems that they're having. So having good proactive conversations with sellers and buyers means having proactive coaching conversations with your teams and having them, call recording is great, but it's already happened. It's not much you can do about it after the fact. So when I say proactive coaching, it's role playing, practicing, on time, real time, on demand coaching to help them feel more confident having those tougher conversations sometimes with buyers. And I think the third thing that I'm finding that's most important in this post-pandemic virtual selling world that teams are struggling with, it's hard to choose whether it's prospecting or follow-up, because both are kind of struggling with the same things in terms of getting people to respond, being engaging virtually when you can't be face-to-face. How do you build rapport virtually? One of the tips that I have for sellers out there, if you're trying to engage with people virtually, I mean, we're all in our homes right now. Like, take a look at the background, or even ask about, where they're calling from and what things are like there, but not just what the weather is, but what was their day like today? How are they feeling today? Tell me a little bit about what that really cool thing is in the background. There's simple things that you can do to build rapport with people virtually. Even in the emails that you send, are you sending these long bullet pointed types of things in your follow-up, or are they short to this point with content that's very relevant to the conversation you had, that's only the information that they need right now and not a deluge of information that they're just going to opt out of even trying to dive into it. So those three things of getting the right people in the right roles, having those proactive coaching conversations, and also follow up and prospecting in ways that are just real and authentic and short and sweet, and no more pitches, please.
Very helpful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now let's turn it around a little bit and talk about the opportunity that there is. So we talked a bit about some of the challenge and how we can address that. But in this new world of work, what new opportunities or where do you see are some of the greatest opportunities available to sales teams?
Well, first is the fact that there is so much information out there on buyers, whether you're doing social stalking to see what they're sharing and what they're talking about, or who they're recommending and questions that they're asking on social, or whether it's, even the analytics that you can get from your website, from your lead intelligence, from your marketing team as to what pages they visited and how long they were there for and how many people from the company have visited the site. We have the ability at our fingertips to find out a lot of information about our buyers. So I think that's a great opportunity that more and more sales teams are starting to understand how to leverage in their sales process to create deeper connections with buyers. And I think the other opportunity is really time. We're not hopping on planes as much. We're not sitting in meetings as much. We're very much more focused on the tasks at hand. And we have the opportunity to live our lives in our homes, but still work virtually like this. I know that I've been working virtually for over a decade now. So it was a little bit of a surprise to me when the rest of the world was like, how do we do this work from home thing? I was like, what do you mean? How do you do it? But it gives us the opportunity to really bring some balance to our lives, to have a morning routine that we can stick to, not have to be stressed and rushed in the rush hour traffic. Like, I live in the Boston area, and just don't even talk to me about traffic. I just opt out. So I think there's opportunities there is the amount of information that we have to make intelligent approaches, and also the time that we have to have that sort of balance in mental health in our lives from working from home. There is a balance. There are some frameworks we need there, but I think that's a great opportunity for salespeople, because we can have a mental game that's really strong virtually. That's going to translate into how we're going to engage with people, because we're not distracted and stressed out, and we can be fully present in the moment with our buyers. I think that's a not talked about enough opportunity for virtual selling.
That's great. Thank you so much, Carole, for sharing those. Now, let's say you're at an event and you meet someone that introduces themselves and say that they're new to a sales director role or a VP of sales, something to that effect. And because your experience in working with other sales executives, they ask you for one nugget of advice. What would you share with them?
I would share with them to objectively evaluate their sales teams for their strengths and their weaknesses as it compares to their competition, and to pre-qualify their sales hires for the same thing. So much of sales is based off of guesswork. This is what we did at our last company. This is how it worked with the last sales team that I hired. And the problem with that is that it's subjective, it's biased, and it's based off an experience that happened. If it happened 2 years ago, it might not even be relevant anymore, given what we've seen happen over the last couple of years. One of the tools that I use is Objective Management Group, which we can share with everyone later. But I use it because it takes all of that bias and subjectivity out of how to develop our teams, who to hire, how to interview them. And it helps us to be able to use 30 years of data on over 2 million sales professionals to predictably understand how do we hire and scale and develop our teams. And for sellers, it's oh, this is why this always keeps happening to me. And here's what I need to do about it, instead of beating our heads against a wall as to why do I keep having this happen and I don't know what to do about it. I think it's a game changer when we can use data to understand how to develop our teams and ourselves in sales so that we can be more buyer focused.
Great. Well, great insight to share. And I really appreciate everything that you've shared with us, Carole. The time goes by very, very quickly, but I appreciate you giving us not just some of the challenges and the opportunities, but specific things that we can do to be able to rise to the challenge and take advantage of these new opportunities.
Yeah.
So, I no doubt you also have folks that you are connected to that you're learning from that have great insights to share as well. I'd love the opportunity to talk to them and invite them on the show. Is there anyone that comes to mind that I should reach out to?
There are like dozens of people that come to mind, but the first person who came to mind for me was Joanne Black. She is, I grow my business mainly by referrals. Like I've been doing digital selling and inbound marketing for over a decade, but I still get 90% of my best clients and customers from referrals. And it's not a passive thing. It's very much a proactive thing. And these are things that I learned from Joanne. And I think that this is something that has, referral selling has been around for a while, but it's always been kind of like doing networking or, if you know anybody type of thing. But Joanne really teaches a proactive process for it that is very relevant to today's style of selling. And she's been doing it for over 25 years. So if there were one person I would recommend everybody follow and that you talk to, it would be Joanne.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward. It does sound like Joanne would have a lot to offer and would have a great conversation. So I'll look forward to connecting with her.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Carole. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I really appreciated the opportunity to have the conversation. And thanks for sharing so much in such a short period of time.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
You bet. And thank you, folks, for tuning in for this, another episode of Sales Growth Showcase. Make sure that you subscribe to the show so that you'll be notified of upcoming episodes. And until next time, I hope you reach invincible success.